In 1972, the CIA conducted an experiment. An experiment so successful, so undeniable, that they classified the results for 23 years. The experiment proved that human consciousness can perceive events across space and time, without any physical connection, without any known mechanism. Pure consciousness accessing information that should be impossible to access. They called it remote viewing. The military called it Stargate. But in 1931, a man named Abdullah called it something else. He called it assumption. And he demonstrated this exact power to a young dancer named Neville Goddard. Not in a laboratory. Not with government funding. In a small apartment in Harlem. 41 years before the CIA proved it was real. Today, we're revealing the forbidden experiment. The one that connects military consciousness research to Abdullah's hidden power. The experiment scientists still cannot explain. This is Hidden Mind Master. And nothing will be the same after this. Let me tell you about Project Stargate. In 1972, the CIA partnered with Stanford Research Institute to test if consciousness could transcend space and time. They recruited subjects with no special training, ordinary people. And they ran a simple experiment. They would send one person to a random location, somewhere in the city, somewhere the viewer had never been. Then they would ask another person sitting in a sealed room miles away to describe that location. No communication, no hints, no clues, just consciousness. The results were impossible. The remote viewers described the locations with stunning accuracy. Building layouts, colors, architectural features, specific objects. Things they should have no way of knowing. The scientists were baffled. They ran the experiment hundreds of times, with different subjects, different locations, different protocols. The results remained consistent. Consciousness was accessing information non-locally, across space, across time, independently of the physical senses. But here's what the CIA discovered that terrified them. The remote viewers weren't just perceiving distant locations in the present. They could perceive future locations, places that would be chosen hours or even days later. They could describe a target before it was selected, before it existed as a decision, before it manifested in physical reality. This meant consciousness wasn't bound by time, wasn't limited to the present moment, could access information from what we call the future, as if past, present, and future exist simultaneously, as if time is not a line but a field, and consciousness can navigate that field freely. The implications were staggering. If consciousness can perceive future events, then the future already exists, not as something being created, as something that is, and consciousness is selecting which future to experience. Now let me tell you what happened in Harlem in 1931. Neville Goddard walked into Abdullah's apartment. He was frustrated, broke, desperate to visit his family in Barbados, but couldn't afford the ticket. Abdullah looked at him and said, "You are in Barbados, not you will be, not you should try to be. You are in Barbados," Neville protested. "But I'm here in New York. I have no money. I have no ticket." Abdullah cut him off. "Your senses lie. Consciousness is the only reality. You are in Barbados now. Assume it, feel it, become it, and reality must conform." Neville thought it was mystical nonsense, but Abdullah demonstrated something that changed everything. He told Neville specific details about his day, things Neville hadn't shared, private thoughts. secret plans, things that should be impossible to know. Neville realized Abdullah wasn't guessing. He was perceiving, accessing information non-locally. The same ability the CIA would prove real 41 years later. But Abdullah did something even more disturbing. He told Neville what would happen next, not predictions, not guesses, specific events in specific order, within specific time frames. And then he said, "I am not predicting your future. I am perceiving the state you are occupying, the state where you are in Barbados. That state already exists. I see it. And because you are assuming it, you will experience it." 3 weeks later, Neville received a first-class ticket to Barbados from his family. They sent it spontaneously, with no prompting, exactly as Abdullah had described. Neville asked him, "How did you know?" Abdullah smiled and said, "I didn't know your future. I perceived your state, your assumption, your consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality. The outer world is just a delayed reflection." Here's what connects the CIA experiment to Abdullah. Both discovered the same law. Consciousness is non-local, not bound by space, not bound by time, not limited to the physical brain. Consciousness is a field, infinite, eternal, omnipresent, and every human being has access to this field. The remote viewers accessed it through focused intention and relaxation. Abdullah accessed it through assumption and inner knowing. Different methods, same mechanism, same results. Both proved that consciousness can perceive information that the physical senses cannot access. Both proved that time is not linear. Both proved that the future already exists. And both proved that consciousness determines which reality you experience. Now let me show you the specific experiment that validates Abdullah's teaching. It's called the Ganzfeld experiment, run by parapsychologist Charles Otterton in the 1970s. Here's how it works. You put one person, the sender, in a sealed room. You show them a randomly selected image, a target. Then you put another person, the receiver, in a different room. You block their normal senses, red lights, white noise, sensory deprivation, and you ask them to describe whatever impressions come to mind. No physical connection, no communication, just consciousness. The results were staggering. The receivers described the target images with accuracy far beyond chance. They perceived colors, shapes, emotions, themes they should have no access to. The experiment has been replicated hundreds of times, across decades, in multiple countries. The meta-analysis is undeniable. Consciousness can transmit and receive information non-locally. But here's the part that proves Abdullah was teaching the same mechanism. The most successful receivers weren't the ones who tried hard. They were the ones who assumed the information was already available, who relaxed into knowing, who didn't doubt or question, who simply accepted that consciousness is connected, that information is accessible, that perception transcends the physical. This is exactly what Abdullah taught. He said, "Don't try, don't hope, don't wonder if it will work. Assume it's already done. Assume the information is already yours. Assume the state is already real, and consciousness will deliver." The Ganzfeld experiments prove this is not mysticism, it's mechanics. It's how consciousness actually functions. Now, let me reveal why Neville never told this story fully, because Abdullah warned him. He said, "People are not ready to know they are gods. If you tell them consciousness is non-local, they will misuse it. They will try to control others, to manipulate, to invade privacy. They will weaponize what should be used for creation. So teach them assumption, teach them state, teach them I am, but never tell them the full scope of what consciousness can perceive and do. Teach them to change themselves, not to control others. Neville honored that warning. He taught assumption, he taught revision, he taught living in the end. But he never explicitly taught remote viewing. He never taught precognition. He never taught telepathy. Even though Abdullah demonstrated all of it, even though Neville experienced all of it, he kept it hidden, veiled, protected, because he understood most people would abuse this knowledge. But here's what the military discovered when they tried to weaponize remote viewing. It doesn't work from ego. It doesn't work from control. It doesn't work from fear or manipulation. Remote viewing only works from a state of unity, from assuming oneness with the target, from dissolving the boundary between self and other, from recognizing that consciousness is shared, universal, one. The moment the viewer tried to force it, the accuracy dropped. The moment they approached it with ulterior motives, the signal became noise. The only way to perceive non-locally is to assume you are already one with what you're perceiving, to dissolve separation, to become it. This is exactly what Abdullah taught. He said, consciousness is the only reality. You and I are not separate. You and Barbados are not separate. You and your desire are not separate. Assume the unity, become the state, and perception follows automatically. Here's the mechanism that explains both the experiments and Abdullah's power. It's called quantum entanglement applied to consciousness. At the quantum level, particles that interact become entangled. They remain connected regardless of distance. Change one, the other changes instantly, faster than light, as if space doesn't exist, as if there's still one system. Now extend this to consciousness. Every human consciousness has interacted with every other consciousness. Through collective unconscious, through shared reality, through the unified field of awareness. We are all entangled, all connected, all one at the deepest level. When you assume a state, you're not creating something new. You're accessing information that already exists in the unified field. You're perceiving a reality that's already real. You're collapsing a quantum possibility that's already present. Abdullah accessed this field consciously, deliberately, effortlessly. The CIA trained remote viewers to do the same thing. Different language, same mechanism. Let me give you a specific example that proves this is real. In 1974, a remote viewer named Pat Price was asked to describe a secret Soviet installation. He had no prior knowledge, no intelligence briefings, no hints, just coordinates. He drew detailed diagrams, building layouts, equipment, functions. The CIA compared his drawings to satellite imagery. They matched perfectly. He described things that were classified, that only a handful of people knew. That should be impossible for him to access. The intelligence agencies were forced to conclude consciousness can access any information in the unified field. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is private. Everything that exists in consciousness is accessible to consciousness. This is what Abdullah knew. This is what he demonstrated. And this is why he warned Neville to keep it veiled. Now here's why scientists hate admitting this. Because it destroys the materialist worldview. For centuries, science has insisted consciousness is produced by the brain. It's local. It's limited. It's confined to the skull. It cannot access information outside the body. But remote viewing proves the brain is not the source of consciousness. The brain is a receiver, an antenna, a transducer. Consciousness is non-local, infinite, unbounded. The brain limits consciousness to create individual experience. But consciousness itself is universal, shared, one. And when you learn to bypass the brain's filters, you can access the unified field directly. This is what meditation does. This is what assumption does. This is what Abdullah taught. Not how to create consciousness, how to access it, how to expand it, how to perceive from it without limitation. But here's the darkest secret the experiments revealed, the one that connects to Abdullah's deepest teaching. Remote viewing works best when the viewer assumes they are not perceiving an external reality. They are perceiving their own consciousness reflected back. The target location is not separate from them. It's a state within their own awareness. When they assume separation, accuracy drops. When they assume unity, accuracy soars. This validates what Abdullah taught. Everyone is you pushed out. The world is not external to you. It's internal. Consciousness projecting itself outward, creating the illusion of separation, of space, of time, of other. But at the deepest level, there is only one consciousness, and you are it, experiencing itself through infinite perspectives. Remote viewing proves this, because the only way to perceive accurately is to assume you are what you're perceiving, not separate from it, not observing it, being it. Let me reveal the final layer, the one Abdullah hinted at but never stated directly. If consciousness is non-local and unified, then every person you encounter is your own consciousness wearing a different mask. Every event you experience is your own assumption reflected back. Every circumstance is your own state externalized. You're not observing reality. You're assigning reality. You're collapsing quantum possibilities based on your assumptions. And the world you see is the world you've assumed into being. This is why Abdullah could perceive Neville's thoughts. Because Neville's thoughts were movements in the shared field of consciousness. And Abdullah was perceiving that field directly, not as separate from himself, as himself. This is why he could perceive Neville's future, because the future is not separate from consciousness. It's a state that already exists, waiting to be experienced. And Abdullah perceived which state Neville was occupying through his assumption. Here's the experiment you can run to prove this yourself. Pick someone in your life, anyone. Assume something specific about them, not hoping it's true, not wishing it were true. Assuming it is true. Hold that assumption consistently for 7 days. Then watch what happens. They will begin to conform to your assumption, not because you're controlling them, because you're collapsing a different quantum state, a different version of them that exists in the field of possibilities. You're perceiving them differently, and perception creates reality. This is what the remote viewing experiments prove. This is what Abdullah taught. This is what Neville learned. And this is what scientists refuse to admit publicly, because it means you are not a victim of reality. You are the creator of reality, through assumption, through state, through consciousness. Now let me connect this to the most disturbing military experiment. In 1995, researchers asked remote viewers to describe the contents of sealed envelopes. But here's the twist. The envelopes were empty. The contents would be selected and placed inside after the viewing session. The viewers were being asked to perceive something that didn't exist yet, something that was still in the future, still undecided, still probabilistic. The results were impossible. The viewers accurately described contents that hadn't been chosen yet. They perceived future decisions, future actions, future realities, as if they were reaching into the field of all possibilities and selecting which one would manifest. This is what Abdullah taught as living in the end. You're not predicting the future. You're selecting the future. From all possible futures, you're collapsing which timeline you will experience based on your assumption, based on your state, based on what you are in consciousness. Here's the equation that connects everything. The CIA spent millions of dollars and decades of research to discover what Abdullah taught for free in a Harlem apartment. Consciousness equals reality. Assumption equals perception. State equals experience. You are not in the world. The world is in you. You are not perceiving reality. You are creating reality through perception, through assumption, through being. The experiments prove it. The physics supports it. The mystics taught it. And Abdullah embodied it. This is the forbidden experiment. The one that reveals Abdullah's real power. The power of consciousness to perceive non-locally, to access the unified field, to collapse quantum possibilities, to select realities, to create experience through assumption. Scientists still can't explain it, because they're trying to explain it materialistically. And this is not material. This is consciousness, pure, infinite, creative. So here's the final revelation, the one that changes everything. The world is not observing you. You are the observer assigning reality. Every person you see is you pushed out. Every event you experience is your assumption reflected back. Every circumstance is your state externalized. You are not a small consciousness trapped in a body. You are the infinite consciousness pretending to be small, playing the game of limitation, of separation, of space and time. But you can wake up from that game. You can remember what you are, what Abdullah knew, what the experiments prove, that consciousness is all there is. And you are that consciousness, experiencing yourself, creating yourself, becoming yourself through infinite assumptions, infinite states, infinite perspectives. This is not philosophy. This is mechanics, proven by classified experiments, taught by a mystic in Harlem, and revealed here today. This is Hidden Mind Master, where forbidden experiments meet ancient wisdom, where military secrets confirm mystical truths, where science and spirituality converge on one undeniable fact. You are consciousness, and consciousness is reality, the only reality. Subscribe to go deeper into the experiments they don't want you to know about, the teachings they tried to suppress, the truth that sets you free. Your power is waiting. Your consciousness is unlimited. Your assumption is everything. Welcome to the forbidden knowledge. Welcome to the truth.